Most people managing diabetes focus on the obvious: what they eat, what medication they take, what their doctor tells them at appointments. And yet, despite doing all of that, blood sugar remains unpredictable. Numbers fluctuate. Control feels out of reach. The explanation is rarely dramatic. It is almost always found in the small, repeated habits that fill the space between meals and medication. The things nobody thinks to examine because they do not look like medical decisions. This video is about exactly those habits. 7 of them. Each one is common, each one is documented, and each one has a direct and measurable effect on blood sugar regulation. My name is Leah, and this channel exists to give you precise, evidence-based information about diabetes management. In today's video, we are going through 7 daily habits that silently worsen diabetes, explaining the biology behind each one, why it disrupts blood sugar, and what you can do differently starting today. If this kind of content is useful to you, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you receive every new video as it is published. The first habit is one of the most widely practiced and least discussed in the context of diabetes management: skipping breakfast, or consistently eating the first meal of the day far too late. After 7 to 12 hours of overnight fasting, blood sugar levels have dropped, and the body is preparing for the demands of the day ahead. When breakfast is skipped or significantly delayed, the body does not simply wait patiently. It responds to the absence of incoming fuel by activating its internal stress response. The adrenal glands release cortisol, and cortisol signals the liver to release its stored glucose, a process called glycogenolysis, directly into the bloodstream. The result is a rise in blood sugar that occurs not because anything was eaten, but precisely because nothing was. For people with diabetes or insulin resistance, this cortisol-driven glucose release can produce a significant morning spike, sometimes referred to as the dawn phenomenon, that sets a difficult baseline for the rest of the day. The body then spends the following hours attempting to bring those elevated levels back down, often with limited success if the hormonal environment remains disrupted. Beyond the direct glucose effect, skipping breakfast amplifies hunger signals over the course of the morning, increasing the likelihood of reaching for rapidly absorbed, high-carbohydrate foods that produce sharp post-meal glucose spikes. Research consistently demonstrates that people who consume a balanced, protein and fiber-rich breakfast, eggs with vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, experience more stable blood sugar throughout the first half of the day compared to those who skip. The takeaway is direct. For most people managing diabetes, skipping breakfast is not a neutral choice. It actively makes blood sugar harder to control from the moment the day begins. The second habit concerns hydration, and specifically what people choose to drink throughout the day. Sugary beverages, sodas, commercial fruit juices, energy drinks, sweetened teas, flavored coffees, sports drinks are among the most potent blood sugar disruptors available. Unlike solid food, liquid sugar bypasses the normal digestive process almost entirely. It enters the bloodstream within minutes of consumption, producing a sharp, rapid, and often dramatic rise in glucose. For someone without diabetes, the pancreas can typically respond with sufficient insulin to manage this spike. For someone with impaired insulin production or insulin resistance, the spike is higher, lasts longer, and causes considerably more metabolic strain. What compounds the problem is that liquid calories do not produce the same satiety signals as solid food. The glucose enters the blood, the spike occurs, but hunger is not reduced, meaning the metabolic cost is paid without any compensating reduction in appetite or subsequent food intake. Fruit juice deserves specific attention here because it is frequently perceived as a healthy alternative to soda. A standard glass of orange or apple juice contains as much sugar as a can of soda, often more, and almost none of the fiber present in whole fruit. Fiber is the mechanism that slows sugar absorption in intact fruit and prevents sharp glucose spikes. When the fruit is juiced, the fiber is removed, and what remains is concentrated liquid sugar that behaves identically to a sweetened drink in the bloodstream. Diet beverages, sweetened with artificial sweeteners and containing no sugar directly, are not a clean solution either. Current evidence suggests that artificial sweeteners may alter gut microbiota composition and influence insulin signaling in ways that are not fully understood, but are unlikely to be neutral in the context of metabolic disease. The most effective and evidence-supported replacement remains plain water. Still, sparkling or lightly infused with lemon or mint, water hydrates the body, supports renal glucose excretion, and contains no sugar. Unsweetened herbal teas and plain black coffee in moderate quantities are generally well tolerated. Replacing one sugary drink per day with water consistently produces measurable improvements in daily glucose readings over time. It is among the lowest effort, highest impact changes available to someone managing diabetes. The third habit is one of the defining features of modern life, and one of the most underestimated contributors to poor blood sugar control: prolonged, uninterrupted sitting. When the body is sedentary, the skeletal muscles are largely inactive. This matters profoundly in the context of diabetes, because muscle tissue is one of the primary sites of glucose uptake in the body. Under normal conditions, active muscles draw glucose from the bloodstream continuously and use it as fuel for contraction and metabolic function. When muscles are inactive for extended periods, this uptake decreases substantially, and blood sugar that would otherwise be absorbed and utilized begins to accumulate in the circulation. Research has demonstrated clearly that sitting for 2 or more consecutive hours produces a measurable rise in blood sugar, even in individuals who exercise regularly at other points during the day. This finding is critical because it means that a single daily workout does not protect against the metabolic consequences of sitting for the remaining 16 waking hours. The benefits of exercise on blood sugar are real but time-limited. They do not provide blanket protection against inactivity. The solution is not necessarily more exercise, it is more frequent movement. Breaking up sedentary time every 30 to 60 minutes with brief physical activity is one of the most effective strategies for maintaining more stable glucose levels throughout the day. This does not require a gym or structured exercise. Standing and walking for 2 to 3 minutes, performing a short sequence of bodyweight movements, or simply moving between rooms is sufficient to re-engage muscle tissue and restore glucose uptake. For people who work at desks or spend long periods seated, setting a timer to prompt movement every 45 minutes is a practical, low-barrier intervention that research has consistently linked to improved glycemic control in people with type 2 diabetes. The fourth habit that significantly worsens diabetes management is consistently poor sleep, whether that means insufficient duration, fragmented quality, or irregular timing from one night to the next. Sleep is not a passive state for the body. During the deeper stages of the sleep cycle, a series of critical metabolic and hormonal processes occur, including the regulation of insulin sensitivity. Insulin sensitivity determines how effectively the body's cells respond to insulin and absorb glucose from the blood. When sleep is cut short or disrupted repeatedly, this regulatory process is impaired, and insulin sensitivity is measurably reduced by the following morning. The practical implication is significant. After a poor night of sleep, the same amount of insulin produces a weaker glucose-lowering effect. The body must compensate by producing more insulin to achieve the same result, placing additional strain on pancreatic beta cells over time. Sleep deprivation also elevates cortisol, which, as we discussed in the context of skipping breakfast, instructs the liver to release stored glucose. A single poor night of sleep can raise fasting blood sugar the following morning independently of anything eaten. The hormonal disruption extends further to appetite regulation. Sleep deprivation elevates ghrelin, the hormone that stimulates hunger, while suppressing leptin, the hormone that signals satiety. The result is increased appetite, stronger cravings for high-carbohydrate foods, and a reduced capacity to make measured food decisions the following day. This creates a compounding cycle. Poor sleep raises blood sugar directly, then makes it harder to eat well, which raises blood sugar further. Most adults require 7 to 9 hours of consistent, quality sleep per night for optimal metabolic function. For someone managing diabetes, this is not a lifestyle recommendation. It is a clinical requirement. Practical steps that support better sleep include maintaining consistent bed and wake times every day, including weekends, eliminating screen exposure for at least 30 minutes before sleep, keeping the bedroom cool and dark, and avoiding caffeine in the afternoon. If persistent sleep difficulties exist, including symptoms of sleep apnea such as loud snoring or daytime fatigue, medical evaluation is warranted. Treating sleep disorders has been shown to produce direct and meaningful improvements in blood sugar control. The fifth habit is one that is almost never discussed in the context of diabetes, yet the science supporting its impact is well established. It is the habit of eating too quickly, without adequate time for thorough chewing and deliberate pacing between bites. When food is consumed rapidly, large quantities of partially digested carbohydrates reach the small intestine in a compressed time frame. The intestinal wall absorbs this glucose rapidly and delivers it to the bloodstream in a concentrated burst, producing a sharper and higher post-meal glucose spike than the same meal consumed slowly would generate. The difference is not minor. Studies comparing fast and slow eating with identical meals have demonstrated significantly different post-meal glucose profiles, the slower eaters showing lower peaks and faster return to baseline. Beyond the rate of glucose absorption, eating speed affects the hormonal response to food. The gut releases satiety hormones, including GLP-1 and peptide YY, in response to food in the digestive tract, but these signals take time to reach the brain and register as fullness. Fast eating outpaces this signaling process, meaning the meal is finished before the body has registered adequate satiation, and more food is consumed than is needed. GLP-1 is particularly relevant in diabetes because it directly stimulates insulin secretion from the pancreas. Slower eating allows more time for GLP-1 release, producing a better and more appropriately timed insulin response to the incoming glucose load. The practical application is straightforward. Place utensils down between bites, chew each mouthful thoroughly, and eat without screens or time pressure. Eating at a table in a calm environment consistently produces slower, more mindful eating compared to eating while working, watching content, or standing. This single habit, practiced consistently, produces measurable improvements in post-meal blood sugar readings within weeks. The sixth habit that silently but powerfully undermines diabetes management is living with chronic, unmanaged stress. Stress is not merely an emotional experience. It is a documented physiological state with measurable effects on blood glucose. When the brain perceives a threat or sustained pressure, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is activated, and the adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline into the bloodstream. These hormones serve a specific evolutionary function. They prepare the body for immediate physical action by mobilizing energy. Cortisol instructs the liver to release stored glucose, and adrenaline inhibits insulin secretion, ensuring that blood sugar remains elevated and available for muscle use. In the context of an acute physical threat, this response is appropriate and self-limiting. In the context of modern chronic stress, financial pressure, work demands, relationship conflict, health anxiety, the same hormonal response is activated repeatedly without the physical activity that would consume the mobilized glucose. The result is that blood sugar rises in response to mental and emotional states, not just food. A stressful day can produce significant glucose fluctuations that are entirely independent of diet. For people with diabetes, this represents a major and frequently overlooked variable in blood sugar control. Chronic stress also compounds indirectly. It disrupts sleep, increases cravings for processed and sugary foods, reduces motivation for physical activity, and lowers adherence to medication routines. It affects every pillar of diabetes management simultaneously. Stress management in this context is therefore not a soft recommendation. It is a metabolic intervention. Slow diaphragmatic breathing, inhaling for 4 counts, exhaling for 6 to 8, has been shown to reduce cortisol levels and lower heart rate within minutes. Regular low-intensity physical activity such as walking, stretching, and yoga serves a dual function. It metabolizes stress hormones while simultaneously improving insulin sensitivity. Social support, time in natural environments, structured routines, and professional psychological support when needed are all evidence-supported approaches for reducing the chronic stress burden that directly worsens glycemic control. The seventh and final habit is the most direct of all, and also one of the most common among people managing long-term chronic conditions: inconsistent medication use and irregular engagement with medical monitoring. Managing diabetes over years is demanding. Fatigue, frustration, and the psychological burden of chronic disease are real and documented phenomena. During difficult periods, it is common to skip doses, postpone appointments, or stop checking blood sugar at home. Each of these behaviors has compounding consequences. A medication skipped twice a week amounts to more than 100 missed doses per year. Blood sugar that goes unmonitored for weeks cannot be adjusted, patterns cannot be identified, and developing complications cannot be caught in their early and most treatable stages. Self-monitoring of blood glucose, whether through a standard glucometer or a continuous glucose monitor, provides the data that makes informed management possible. Without it, both the patient and the physician are operating without critical information. Changes to medication, diet, or activity that could improve control cannot be made without baseline data. If medication is being avoided due to side effects, cost, complexity, or lack of understanding of its purpose, that conversation must happen with a doctor. There are almost always alternatives, adjustments, or simplified regimens available. Regular medical check-ins, including HbA1c testing, kidney function panels, lipid profiles, foot examinations, and ophthalmological assessments, are not administrative formalities. They are the surveillance system that detects the silent complications of diabetes, neuropathy, nephropathy, retinopathy, cardiovascular risk, before they become irreversible. Consistent engagement with medical care is not optional. It is the foundation on which every other management strategy rests. Now, let us address what practical improvement actually looks like, because understanding these habits is only valuable if it translates into action. The approach that works is not wholesale transformation. It is sequential, deliberate, sustainable change. Begin with one habit, the one that is most relevant to your current situation and most feasible to address. Focus on that single change consistently for 2 to 3 weeks before introducing another. This method builds durable behavioral patterns far more reliably than attempting to change everything simultaneously and abandoning the effort within days. Keep a written log if it helps, recording movement, hydration, sleep duration, meal timing, and corresponding blood sugar readings. Patterns will emerge from that data, and those patterns are some of the most actionable information available to someone managing this condition. Share your goals with your healthcare provider. Informed clinicians can provide specific, tailored guidance on which habits are most likely to impact your individual glucose profile. And acknowledge that managing a chronic condition over years involves periods of difficulty. Imperfect adherence is not failure. It is the normal experience of managing a complex, lifelong condition. The goal is not a perfect record. It is a consistent direction toward better awareness, better habits, and better control, one evidence-based decision at a time. The habits covered in this video, meal timing, beverage choices, movement frequency, sleep quality, eating speed, stress management, and medication consistency, are not isolated variables. They are interconnected components of a single metabolic system. Improving one tends to make the others more manageable. Better sleep improves food choices. More movement reduces stress hormones. Consistent medication adherence provides the data needed to make everything else more effective. The entry point matters less than the commitment to begin. Thank you for watching. If this video has been useful, share it with someone who needs this information. We will see you in the next video.